If you've been stretching tight hamstrings for weeks, months, or even years, it's a good chance that it's not the missing piece to your puzzle. So when the hamstrings are normally quite tight, there's other muscles that are not picking up the load and the hamstrings have to do that. So sometimes they're actually overworked or sometimes they're just weak and underdeveloped. So in this video, I'm going to show you my approach that I would take to get the glutes actually firing up and doing their work properly, working through the full range of the hamstrings so they're nice and strong, so they don't cause you any issues, and also work through the pelvis stability, just so your pelvis is in a nice stable position so the muscles can work through that load a lot more efficiently and you can run a lot better. So I'll get into the hamstrings first, but before I do that, we're just going to do a quick stretch just to open up the front of the hip, just so the other exercises can be done a little bit more efficiently. So with this one, we're just going to find a nice little box or a bench, make sure there's a cushion underneath the knee. And then from here, you're going to engage the core, pull the belly button in, and then we're just going to lightly lean back until you feel a nice little stretch in the front of your thigh. And then from here, we're just going to tuck the hips under a little bit, squeeze the glutes slightly, and that's just going to get to the hip flexors a little bit more. Just start to open up through the front of that hip nicely, and then just bring it back. And then again, activate that glute, try and squeeze the hip forward slightly. And then if you feel that you've got a little bit more range, you can just come up a little bit more from the hips, spine nice and neutral, belly button in, and then feel that nice little stretch. And do 5 of those one side with that activation of the glute, and then 5 the other side, just to loosen off a little bit. That said, let's get into the hamstrings. So we're going to do 2 hamstring exercises in this video. So the first one's going to be rollouts. Now, if you haven't got a ball, I will put another exercise up in the corner that you can do with maybe socks, a towel, or some sliders. And again, from here, we're just going to make sure that your spine's in a nice neutral position, and just making sure that your knees don't lock out. So there's just a micro bend in the knees. If you're hypermobile, make sure that you don't push through the knees as well. Just be aware of that. And then from here, the heels are going to be on the ball, hip width apart. And then from here, engage the core, spine nice and neutral. Drive the hips up towards the ceiling. And then from here, you're just going to bring the heels towards the buttocks and then take it back out nice and controlled, keeping the hips high. And that should get into the hamstrings quite nicely. Again, if that does get too easy, you can do one-legged ones, and that stabilizes a little bit more through the hips and through the glutes as well. So this is a lovely one for the back kinetic chain. Does get into the glutes a little bit, but this is a really good one for those hamstrings to fire them up. But saying that, let's get into the second one. So next up is the Jefferson curl. So you're going to need a box or a bench to stand on. And again, I like to do this with body weight to start off with, just to see how it feels with your body. And if that's good enough for you, then just stay with body weight, build up from there, and then start to add weight as you go through the motions. Okay, so we're going to stand on the box. Feet are going to be hip width apart, nice and tall from the crown of the head. And then from here, you're going to take a nice inhale as we exhale, tuck that chin in towards the chest, and then just come down vertebrae by vertebrae. Legs are nice and straight. And then just come all the way down till you feel a nice little stretch in your hamstrings. No need to force it. Feel that stretch. Take a nice inhale here, and as we exhale, again, driving up vertebrae by vertebrae, stacking through the hips first, and then coming up. And then really start to feel that activation through those hamstrings. So we work through the full range of the motion of the hamstring. So we're getting the strength in that full length position as well. Okay, so I'm going to add some dumbbells and just show you how it looks with dumbbells, and then you feel free to start adding weight when you feel comfortable with it. So again, nice and tall from the crown of the head, shoulders back and down. Again, legs nice and straight, feet hip width apart. Take a nice inhale as you exhale, tuck the chin in towards the chest, and then come down vertebrae by vertebrae. And then again, feel that nice little stretch. Take a nice inhale, and as you exhale, nice and strong through the feet, stack through the hips, and then driving up. And then again, using the hamstrings and your back kinetic chain, coming up vertebrae by vertebrae, nice and tall from the crown of the head, and then relax. Again, inhale, and then exhale, repeat again. So that's going to strengthen through those hamstrings, through the full length, so we can actually start to loosen them off a little bit more and get some strength in there so we can run and move a lot better. That said, let's get into the next exercise. So next up, we're going to get into the glutes a little bit more to get those firing up and working so they can take some of the load off of the hamstring. So I like the bridge with the ball, so it adds a little bit of instability on there and it gets them firing up nicely as well. So you're going to have a ball here. And again, this time, feet are going to be hip width apart, spine's nice and neutral. And then from here, you're just going to bring the feet in, so the knees are roughly above the hips. And then having that spine nice and neutral from here, we're just going to take a nice inhale as we exhale, bring the hips up towards the ceiling, and then taking them back down. So this is nice, it's working through the glutes and that back kinetic chain at the same time. And again, if this does get a little bit too easy for you, you can do the one-legged bridge as well with some balance in there. And again, really starts to fire up through that glute. And again, if you haven't got a ball, we can do this on the bench, where I'll demonstrate that up in the corner as well. So try that one out, it gets into the glutes nice and gets them firing up. And that'll lead us into our next exercise. So now we've tackled the hamstrings and the glutes. The next one is to keep the pelvis nice and stable. So working through this front body. So I like to use the ball with this one. So we're going to go into the dead bug with a ball to start off with. So again, this really sort of works through the pelvis to stabilize it a bit more. So we don't go into that anterior tilt as we run. And it helps with the switching on of the glutes. So from here, back nice and neutral, engaging the core, rib cage in. We're going to have the ball in between the knees and the hands. Hands shoulder width apart, knees in line with the hips. And then from here, squeeze into the ball. And then again, we're just going to do opposite arm and opposite leg coming away. Squeezing into the ball still. And then come back up nice and controlled. And then switching arms, switching legs. And take it back down. So really have that feeling of squeezing into the ball still, using that core, stabilizing everything through here. And again, if you haven't got a ball, I'll show an exercise up in the corner, which is similar, a bird dog that you can do. I don't find it's as effective, but another one that you can do just if you haven't got a ball. So that's another great exercise. So we've done this one. Let's get into the next one. And then the next one up will be the dead bug again. So this one's going to be with weight, so it's slightly different. You're going to get a slightly different feel with this. So again, same as before, set yourself up, spine nice and neutral, engage your core, belly button in, bring that one leg up to tabletop, and then the other leg up to tabletop. From here, take a nice inhale as we exhale, just bring the arms back as far as you can, keeping that rib cage down, and then just tap one toe or one heel down towards the ground, and then bring it back up, and then just alternate legs. Coming down, rib cage down, and taking it back up. So here you want to have that feeling that your rib cage is not coming up towards the ceiling. Everything's staying nice and controlled through here as we do it. So your focus point is the core staying intact as we're moving away from the body and then bringing it back in as well. Okay, so don't focus on the arms and the legs too much, if that makes sense. Focus on that core stability. If you are new to this exercise, push your lower back in towards the mat, and that'll give you a feedback loop. If you feel your lower back's pulling away from the mat, you know you're overreaching, just bring it back up with the arms and legs a little bit more. Don't go as far down, and then just find that biting point that's good for you, where you're working through that range, where it's trying to pull you away, but you can still control it. And that's where you should be with this one. So it's a brilliant exercise. So with these exercises, we've started to add strength, stability, and also control as well through the hips. So these are fantastic exercises to start to add in. This all said and done, stretching still has a place in your working week, in your repertoire, when it comes to dynamic stretching, static stretching, and PNF, or active stretching, or even some pin and stretch stuff that I showed in other videos as well. That still works through the hamstrings nicely. Still stay with that, Obviously start to add the strength work in, i.e. the glutes firing up properly to take the load away from the hamstrings. The hamstrings nice and strong, so they're not weak, so they can work through their full range of motion, especially if you're sitting all day. And then obviously the pelvis, getting that nice and stable, so we're not starting to drop into this movement, switching off the glutes and getting the hamstrings working over time as well with that one. So I hope you found this useful for you. If you did, then obviously like and subscribe. And if you know someone with tight hamstrings and they're looking for something different, then maybe show them this video and then get them to go through this. And then, like with all these videos, I am going to do a follow along workout one, so stay tuned for that as well. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.